Welcome back to the SRM 3D Prints channel. My name is Tim. So we're going to take a little break from the custom printer prototype that I'm working on right now. Kind of ran into a little bit of a snag on it. Should be easy enough to fix, but we're taking the break because a project that I was working with on Mr. Keith Rucker from vintagemachinery.org, his Camelback straight edge project. So I've done a little bit of reprinting on these. We had some issues with the really fine sand that they're using for the casting. It's actually getting stuck in the layer lines of the print. So I thought, well, we're gonna since we're looking for a quality thing, I changed the nozzle out on my printer, dropped from a 0.5 millimeter nozzle down to a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, which greatly improved the surface finish on the flats. But I also slowed the printer down, trying to get more consistent out of the borders on this. But it still has a little bit of an edge. So Keith wanted to see how the prints come right off the printer. So I'm actually got the other side of the 9-incher printing right now, and then I gotta measure and fine-tune the lettering inserts that will go into this one. Did the same thing for these 6-inchers, and it's all but a press fit right now. So I'm not even going to put the letters in. I'll let Keith do that when it's once he gets them. Just that way, if he wants to fine-tune anything, it'll be easy enough to fine-tune. But yeah, definitely a snug fit, much closer than the last batch were. Because I mean, we just kind of guessed on the last batch, but they glued in just fine. But anyway, so I'm going to take the time and actually clean up these 6-inchers, and because I got other projects going on, so I'm going to kind of show you the process that I go through when I'm working on a print that I want the finish to be really nice. Anyway, let's move the camera down a little closer so you actually see what's going on, and we'll get this going.
Alright, we're going to start off with just a general scraping. We're taking just a razor blade, putting it on at 90 degrees to the part, and just trying to remove the largest of the layer lines that are out of position. It doesn't take very long to actually make quite a bit of difference, and this will greatly reduce the amount of sanding in the end. As a precaution, make sure you are always scraping away from yourself. You don't want to have the razor blade come off of the part and end up into your personage. That would be very painful. I'm starting with a 220 grit sandpaper. I found that the PLA tends to just get gummy if you sand it with anything coarser than that, so like say a 120 grit when you're hand sanding. It works okay when you are using an oscillating sander, but not so much with that. And but yeah, I'm just basically going all the straight edge or all the flat surfaces and trying to make them as uniform as possible before I go back in with the hand sanding. I didn't have a sanding block available to do these overhangs, so I just ran the sandpaper over the edge there. That worked out pretty good. And again, we're just working with a 220 grit. I'm trying to go a little bit off angle from the print lines. It makes it cut the lines down a lot quicker. If you go in the same direction, the paper will tend to just follow the lines. It will eventually level it out, but it's not as effective as if you're a little bit off angle. And now I'm working around all these little fine detail areas. They're not very big, but it still is a potential area for the sand to get hooked into there, and that's not something we're looking for in the final product. I've switched out to a 320 grit sandpaper now. As you work, the first pass gets the bulk of it down, and then each subsequent pass, going finer at a time, will reduce the more or less the sanding lines and make it just smoother as you go. Usually the first grit is the most amount of work, and then after that it just gets easier and easier. And now we're on to the 400 grit. This is the final sandpaper that I'll be using for this. And again, just working across the grain line, trying not to follow in the exact same pattern as the previous ones, and also getting all the little nooks and crannies in the process. The piece ended up pretty polished by the end of this. Another word of caution, you want to make sure you're not rounding over the edges where the two pieces meet. That's something I was very conscious of in the directions I was sanding as I progressed this.
Before we get too much further, we want to make sure these two match up really good, which they still do, but man, that is a night and day difference on the surface finish. So I'm going to finish up the second half off camera, then I'll bring you guys back once we get ready to do the final, or get this painted. So, alright, well, I got these all sanded and prepped, and I was going to put a layer of primer on there, but these are so stinking smooth. I'm just going to go straight for the clear coat. Should make them pop pretty nice too while we're at it, but yeah. Shouldn't take very much, and these will just be slicker than snot when they come time to mold them. But time will tell. We'll have to do a test and see if they actually work. Anyway, get this going.